Hi, today this video will be about settling into a new country.
From the beginning, how you will start your video.
Okay,
So now start.
okay. Okay, so today's video is going to be about settling into a new country as an expat. In particular, the examples I've given are really for the UK, simply because I was asked by a friend to do this video. She contacted me recently because she'd gone to the UK as a new expat, really excited, and sort of ready to start her new life. She was married and ready to start her new life. And then when she got there was certain things that she kind of felt, she wasn't totally settled, and she was, wondering whether she'd made the right decision, and lots of things. And I said, well, give it time. You have to give these things time because, it is a completely different environment to Dubai, where she's been living for, I think, at least 20 years. And a different environment to where she was originally from, in Iran. So we have to give time. But she asked me to kind of do something so that people could know what to expect when they did go to another country. But as I say, in particular to the UK. And interestingly, when I started to do my research, there were certain things that came to mind that I could remember being very different from when I came to Dubai. But I did a little bit of research as well, and interestingly, one of the things that came up is in order to get on well there, you really need to learn how to make a good cup of tea for visitors. Okay, English people love a cup of tea, and it's really, these people said, if you can make a good cup of tea, then you'll make your visitors feel really welcome when they visit your home. But on a more serious note, the British people are very strict on punctuality. Something I've noticed is not so much so in different parts of the world. So people have commented before, is like, you're always on time, as if it's a quite an unusual thing. But yeah, we are very strict. So if you do have an appointment, particularly if it's an interview or something like that for a job, it's absolutely imperative that you get there on time. Really imperative that you get there on time. One of the other things that she in particular, because I checked with her, what were the things that she found difficult? Most of the shops in the UK close at 5:30, and that's quite unusual these days in many ways. Certainly here in Dubai, I'm sure if I was sitting in the evening and decided I wanted my hair cut at 10 o'clock in the evening, I'd almost certainly still be able to find somewhere. At 5:30 in the UK, most of the shops close, and some of them will have one evening where they're open a bit later. I think usually a Thursday, but they'll have one evening. But otherwise, your shopping should be done during the day, and be ready to sort of be home by 5:30 without any shops open. Something else that came up is that the British people don't blow their own trumpets. Okay, now what we mean by that is we don't draw attention to ourselves and say, look at me, aren't I wonderful, I can do this and I can do that. We tend not to be like that, and therefore sometimes when people do, we can take that in a funny way and feel that people are perhaps a little big-headed or being quite brash, maybe. So that's one of the things about the British. We often use the word dear or darling. That very often comes up, and it's very interesting because when we and I suppose here in Dubai, when you see someone, sometimes they may refer to you as Habibi or Habibti, and I suppose in a sense this is a similar thing. However, I did recently, I was looking at a Facebook question that someone had posed in one of the Facebook groups, and the question was, what are the terms that really annoy you? and irritate you that people say. And one of the things that actually came up consistently was when people call them dear or darling. Okay, so I just thought I'd add that in, that it is something that we use a lot in the UK. Thanks dear, thanks darling. Even in a shop with people that you don't know, they will say that. Okay, but don't be offended, it's just a term of endearment, and that's all there is to that. Name calling and joking is actually something that the Brits do quite a bit. In fact, it tends to be a term of endearment as well. So when people are joking, they do have quite a kind of jovial manner about them, and they like to joke and perhaps call people names, but it's done in a friendly way. And in actual fact, I've always felt that when you can joke with somebody, then you have an attachment to them, and you tend to like them. So if somebody is joking with you, you can almost rest assured that they've taken to you, and they're very comfortable with you. Okay, otherwise it would be very difficult for them to do that. If you're invited to somebody's house for dinner or drinks or something, it's always a nice gesture to take something along with you, as a kind of thank you, and that tends to be maybe flowers, chocolates, something like that, or a bottle, and that's a kind of gesture to say thank you for your hospitality. Okay, and if invited, it's very important that you do respond and with an RSVP and say yes, we will be there, thank you, and so on. That's just really sort of etiquette. Displays of affection in public are not really acceptable. That doesn't mean to say that you won't see it from time to time, but generally the British public don't like displays of affection in public places, and I'm sure most people, if they've lived here for any length of time, will be quite happy to know that anyway, because I think here we've grown accustomed to the fact that that's something we don't see and we don't need to see in public. Brits need their personal space. So when you're speaking to them, you should stand, a few feet away. If you stand too close to them, they will start to feel quite uncomfortable. So just that personal space is actually really, really important. Okay. We have a diverse population. So learning about one British person doesn't necessarily mean that you know the British public, because we are very, very diverse, and the place is equally as diverse. So if you see something on YouTube or on social media generally that refers to London, for example, being a very outgoing, lively place, that doesn't mean to say that England or Britain is a very outgoing, lively place. The towns and the villages around are all very, very different, and in fact some of our villages are very quiet, and you will perhaps just have one place in that whole village that you would be able to go to in the evenings. So it's very different, and you will be able to find places that suit your likes and dislikes. In terms of accents, the British people have very different accents depending on where you come from. So a London accent is very different to a Manchester accent, or a Liverpudlian accent, or a Scottish accent. So they're very different. So be prepared when you think you understand the language and everything, then suddenly you may speak to somebody else and think, that sounds very different. It'll be the same language but said very differently. It can be quite difficult to understand, and even the Brits themselves sometimes find it difficult to understand the accents of others from other regions. Just be aware as well that there's the English test scoring. So when you get to the UK, there's obviously things that you're going to have to work out. Things like driving licenses. You're going to have to register with a doctor, and all those things. And it can be quite trying at times, especially when we don't have long opening hours mostly. But one of the things that you're going to need to do is to really, really, really concentrate on your English, because you will need a test scoring. Now there is of course the IELTS tests, and the IELTS tests you will need a score of at least 7 in order to be able to start working. Okay. Now there are other tests as well, like the OET, which is the occupational language test. Okay, and this is actually designed purely for those people in the healthcare services. Okay, so it's the English that's needed for working in the healthcare services, and that obviously is important as well. Okay. One of the things my friend mentioned about was public toilets, and I went back to her and said, what did you mean about public toilets? There were few and far between, so it's sometimes difficult to find them, and also that they're not necessarily as clean as some of the ones certainly that we're used to here in Dubai. So that will depend very much on where you're judging it from. Okay, so if you're comparing it to other places, they may be okay. To Dubai, that they are definitely not as consistently good, at least. Okay, and perhaps not as easy to find, so you won't find them in all places. So prepare yourself. There's a couple of other things that she did mention. Knowing where to buy things, I think this was a frustration to her. She'd been living in a country for 20 odd years, and if she needed something that she needed to buy, she knew exactly where to go for it, and suddenly she didn't know which shop sold what things. So that was a bit of a frustration. And the standards of driving, of course, they're very different. Here in Dubai, I think we've got a mixture of driving standards from all around the world, and therefore it kind of is it's a style of its own. But certainly if you go to the UK, you can only overtake on the one side, and it's definitely against the law to be overtaking on the other side. Okay, so just check those things with a local person before you go out driving. Maybe just take someone with you on the first trip so that you can be sure. Okay, but it will take a little while to settle, without any shadow of a doubt. And I know that even 3 weeks into her journey, I know that she's feeling much more confident already. So all the best. If that's something that you are going to do, just think of those things and realize that it will take time. And it, you will have built up a lot of excitement for it, and then suddenly there's all these issues, but they're not issues. They're just things to change in your own mind. Okay, so all the best with that. Please subscribe to my channel, and please turn on notifications so that when we have any more videos, you will be automatically notified. And you'll also find us on Instagram. Thank you.